This episode of Bend the Knee is brought to you by Sir William of House Lombard.
Hello and welcome to Bend the Knee, a Song of Ice and Fire podcast. I am Sir Matt, the Bud Knight.
And I am Sir Ezra the Watchful. Welcome to our Song of Ice and Fire book club. Today we are into Chapter 36, Daenerys IV of A Game of Thrones. And in A World of Ice and Fire, we are discussing the Westerlands. That's kind of hard to believe we're only in, Daenerys IV. Wow.
I know. Every time we come to Daenerys chapter, we say that. We're like, man, it feels like we haven't talked about Daenerys in a while. And I think the last time I said, hey, I think we have 10 episodes until we hit Daenerys again. But she has really long chapters.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why. And Daenerys is one of those characters who a POV read, like in the first book, it's pretty much like there's not really a lot you hear about her. We heard about her, when was it? A week or two ago when Ned was fighting with the council. But other than that, you don't really hear a lot about Daenerys.
Right, yeah. Well, and actually, we're going to talk in this week, her pregnancy moving along as it is, and so we kind of forget that, some significant amount of time has passed. And I think people in the past who have timelined this out, I've looked at, her age compared to Jon Snow's. People are always talking about when these chapters start, and just because what we read, we read it where Jon is right now, Dany could be something that's happening, after, it's weird. It's weird the way in which, it's sort of timelined out. So I don't know. Sometimes it's just difficult to keep track of, but okay. All right, guys.
All right. Well, Ezra, how you doing today, man?
Dude, I mean, it's just, how am I doing?
Are you getting less stressed out?
No, man. I mean, no. I wish I could say yes, but I just can't. You know what? That's okay. This whole hedge night here, it just put it on my shoulders, okay? I'm just a workhorse. I'm just going to keep going, Try and stop me. So I'm just going to keep my head down and just keep doing what I got to do. I think, between you and I, we've got some plans for ways to make our lives less stressful, so that'll be good. But no, I mean, overall, it's actually been, I kind of joke and say, I am always stressed out, but then I got to remind myself too to quit being so negative, because it's like we're blessed, we have good jobs, we're fine, we live in a good country, things are, the realm is prospering, so we'll be all right.
Yeah. Hey, that's where I feel. Hey, man, my career searches are improving.
Yeah.
So that's kind of good. So have something maybe lined up that'll make my life a little more easier. But yeah. Hey, man, you know what keeps me going is the realm.
I know.
A lot of really good listeners. Last Friday we were getting kind of pumped up, and people were sending us a lot of ravens. Be like, "You guys okay, man? What are you guys talking about?" Stuff like that. Sir Ezra and I, we're always just looking at where we stand, with the podcast, and
we're just
that. And speaking of which, I just want to let everyone know we got a lot of feedback because we've been talking about kind of the formatting of the show, and I just want to let everyone know it is probably going to change a little bit once Fire and Blood comes out. Sir Ezra and I have been thinking of a lot of ways to kind of streamline things. To make it kind of easier for us, and in the process should give you guys more content. And I think everyone's really going to like it, actually.
Well, what's funny is that the word streamline plus more. I mean, it makes sense. You're going to, streamline it so that way you can get more, actually. So that'll be good. It'll be more access, more influence, and should be fun. So we're still kind of penciling down ideas. Sir Matt came up with this, though. He's got some ideas, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, if we head on over to Small Council, man, it's been a while since we've done a Grr watch, and there's quite a bit of news actually going on right now.
Yep.
First of all, the Game of Thrones Johnny Walker edition, I actually did finally get a bottle. I have yet to open it, and I don't know if I ever want to open it because it's like a collector's edition. But I know other people have been posting about it. It is super cool. Actually, the liquor store I went to, which is in the same parking lot as my gym.
Yeah.
When
Perfect.
They had several bottles. So, if you happen to live in the Portland, Oregon area, maybe you can find yourself some there. But all right, some other things. There was a special edition Funko Pop. The creators, this was last month. I forgot. I meant to talk about this, but it's like Dan, Dave, and Gur.
Yeah.
Funko Pops. Kind of cool. And some other news. Do you remember earlier this summer? They were having the contest of the top 100 Great American Reads, and it was all of the.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah. It was all the different books. Well, top 100. Game of Thrones came in at number 48.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. And let's see some other things. I don't know what ended up winning. Lord of the Rings came in 5th. I don't really know what came in first, and the fact that it's not actually Lord of the Rings is kind of curious.
It's something. It's
I'm actually surprised. Game of Thrones is as high as it is.
Oh, really? Yeah. Huh.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me. I mean, obviously we love the books and everything, but Game of Thrones is still relatively new, right? And I feel like, like 50 years from now, I could see it moving up because of the influence of the show, and people can go back to it and things like that. But I'm actually surprised that it was actually that high, especially when you consider that things like, War of the Worlds were on the ballot, Tale of Two Cities, like Great Expectations, Tom Sawyer, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. So,
well, yeah. Well, and
I mean, the fact that it's even in the top 50 says a lot.
Yeah, it does. I mean, the other thing is your audience. How many young readers? Because the thing with
Right.
Lord of the Rings, you've got young readers alike, and people have been reading it for 80,
Right.
70 years. I don't even know how long they've been reading The Hobbit.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like it just comes down to like time and things like that. And,
yeah.
Like Game of Thrones is still too young for me to even consider it like a classic. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good
compared to like Huckleberry Finn, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
So, all right. So, so that was something that we talked about earlier. And there has been some casting announced for The Long Night.
Yeah, this is interesting.
The first cast member is Naomi Watts. I had to look her up. She seemed quite familiar, but yeah. Let me see here. Gur says he could not be more excited. Welcome to Westeros, Naomi. Gur says, meanwhile, there are still a couple of other possible prequels in active development. I can't tell you the subject matter of those projects. No, sorry, wish I could. The readers among you might want to grab a copy of Fire and Blood when it's released on November 20th, though.
Well, so what's he saying there?
Yeah.
Is he saying?
I don't know. Dance of the Dragons, maybe. King Jaehaerys may be kind of cool. I don't know.
He could do Aegon's Conquest. I mean, who knows? I mean, if he's gonna
that's
say,
what I would do.
Yeah. Well, if he's gonna say that he can't talk about them, but if I were you, I'd go buy a copy of Fire and Blood. And that's sort of a. I don't know, that would be neat, because we were just talking that the Age of Heroes stuff for The Long Night, you're not going to have any Targaryens in that, are you? I mean, you might reference them, or you might hear mention of them across the sea, but you're not going to have any Targaryens there at all. So that is interesting in and of itself. So
I'm looking up Naomi Watts. She's one of those actresses where if like you see her, you're like, oh, okay, maybe she was in like The Ring, and
yep, The Ring.
I just got her
Wow.
Wikipedia here. I love Huckabees. She was in The Ring 2. Okay, so she's doing pretty
good
there, I guess. Yep. A bunch of other stuff. I'm like,
she's a supporting actress a lot. It looks like
right. She was in Saint Vincent, which is a movie. It's got Bill Murray in it and Melissa McCarthy. I remember her in that. But other than that, I'm looking at some of the stuff and I'm like, yeah, I can't say that I know that.
She's in the Book of Henry. Yeah.
She's in
things.
like some episodes of Twin Peaks.
Yeah. Cool. I mean, it actually has it listed here though that she's in The Long Night, TV movie pre-production. So
and also one other thing, kind of on Gur Watch, and the last thing here is that Fire and Blood is coming out this month, and so Gur has declared November Targaryen Appreciation Month.
No way.
I actually thought that every month in Gur's eyes was Targaryen Appreciation Month. But,
wow.
Yeah. So he said, he had a post here. I had the other day.
Good for him.
It's easier if I pull it up on my Twitter because I had retweeted it. But yeah, it says it's Targaryen Appreciation Month. And Thursday is Targaryen Thursday, so you should give your favorite quote on Thursdays from Targaryens. He said, share your favorite quote about Targaryens. So, Sir Ezra, what's your favorite Targaryen quote?
Wow. That's a tough one. I'd have to think about it. I mean, besides just like their, Fire and Blood, I mean, I got to think of something a little extra special. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I thought mine was I'm Lord Commander Jon Snow. That's my favorite Targaryen quote. So yeah.
Or burn them all, Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Burn them all is also
up
pretty
there.
Good. Yeah, so
that's funny.
So okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and dive into our Maester study here. We are talking about something I've been wanting to talk about for a long time, and that is the Westerlands.
Yeah.
It's funny. Last week we were talking about the Iron Islands, and was it Sir Gibbs who called us out on it when we were like, yeah, we don't really care. And then like once we started talking, we're like, this is pretty interesting, actually. Like,
yeah, right. Yeah, right away. Like, oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So all right, here the Westerlands are a place of rugged hills and rolling plains, of misty dales and craggy shorelines, a place of blue lakes and sparkling rivers with fertile fields of broadleaf forest that teem with game of every sort, where half-hidden doors in the side of wooded hills open onto labyrinth caves that wend their way through darkness to reveal unimaginable wonders and vast treasures deep beneath the earth. These are rich lands, temperate and fertile, shielded by high hills to the east and south and endless blue waters of the Sunset Sea to the west. Once the children of forest made their homes in the woods, whilst giants dwelt amongst the hills, where their bones can still occasionally be found. But then the first men came, with fire and bronze axes to cut down the forest, plow the fields, and drive roads through the hill country where the giants made their abodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is an area where we do not spend a lot of time in A Song of Ice and Fire. I mean, really not a lot. Did we ever spend time in the Westerlands?
No, and it's I didn't even realize. So I'm looking at some of the houses here too, and then as they come up, you kind of forget. When these characters are introduced, and it's like Lord so and so from house whatever. It's like
right.
Where is that at? And you have to kind of go look it up and figure out where they're all from, because you've got houses here. Like I just realized, obviously, we know about the Lannisters, but we've got, and I knew about the Westerlings for sure, but you've got like the Plums. So I just looked and thought,
I was just about to mention that. Yeah, the Plums, who
yeah,
Maynard Plum in the Mystery Knight, kind of a big deal. Although, is it actually Maynard Plum?
Yeah, it's not. I don't think, but it's sort of like
I think
just kind of a cool connection there. That.
Yeah. So some of the houses of the Westerlands we have, Krakenhall. That's one we hear about.
Yeah.
Brax, who I'm blanking on them. Clegane, obviously. Farman, Leftard, Rain, Westerling, Payne. There's one. Marbrand. There's another one we kind of hear back. Lydon, Prester, and Tarback.
Yeah.
So yeah, some of those sound kind of familiar. Like Westerling, Payne, Clegane. But man, some of those other ones, Brax. I can't tell you. I could not tell you who the last, who that is.
Yeah, I'd have to go look that up. I was just looking up Crackhall, and just looking at some of the, was it Roland Crackhall, and you've got a couple other different people. Sir Tybalt, his heir.
Right. Right. So yeah, right. So as you kind of pull that up, I'll kind of piece some other stuff here too, just some of the history. Many and more great houses trace their roots back to the golden age of the first men. Among those are the Hawthorns, the Foots, the Brooms, and the Plums. So there's even some other ones that they kind of mention here. But I kind of want to talk a little bit about the Casterlys. I have a big passage here I'm gonna read.
Okay.
Though never kings, the Casterlys became the richest lords in all of Westeros and the greatest power in the Westerlands, and remain so for hundreds of years. By then, the Dawn Age had given the way to the Age of Heroes. That was when the golden-haired rogue called Lan the Clever appeared from out of the east. Some say he was an Andal adventurer from across the narrow sea, though his wife was millennia before. Though this was millennia before the coming of the Andals to Westeros. Regardless of his origins, the tales agree that somehow Lan the Clever winkled the Casterlys out of their rock and took it for his own. The precise method by which he accomplished this remains a matter of conjecture. It is the most common version of the tale that Lan discovered a secret way inside the rock, a cleft so narrow that he had to strip off his clothes and coat himself with butter in order to squeeze through. Once inside, however, he began to work his mischief, whispering threats in the ears of sleeping Casterlys, howling from the darkness like a demon, stealing treasures from one brother to plant in the bedchamber of another, rigging sundry snares and deadfalls. By such methods, he set the Casterlys at odds with one another and convinced them that the rock was haunted by some fell creature that would never let them live out in peace. Other tellers prefer other versions of the tale. In one, Lan uses the cleft to fill the rock with mice, rats, and other vermin, thereby driving out the Casterlys. In another, he smuggles a pride of lions inside, and Lord Casterly and his sons are all devoured. After which Lan claims lordship over the wife and daughters for himself. A bedfast of stories has Lan stealing in night after night to have his way with Casterly's maidens whilst they sleep.
Yeah.
In 9 months' time, the maids all give birth to golden-haired children, whilst still insisting they had never had carnal knowledge of a man. The last tale, as it is, has certain intriguing aspects that might hint at the truth of what occurred. It is Archmaester Perston's belief. Now, real quick, there's an Archmaester we've never heard of.
Yep.
Here's brand new Archmaester that I've.
Who is this guy?
Yeah, right. Seeing that. Yeah, who's that? Belief that Lan was a retainer of some sorts in service to Lord Casterly, perhaps a guard, who impregnated his lordship's daughter or daughters, though that seems less likely, and persuaded her father to give him the girl's hand in marriage. If indeed this was what occurred, assuming that Lord Casterly had no true-born sons, then in the natural course of events, the rock would have passed to the daughter and hence to Lan upon the father's death. There is, to be sure, no historical evidence for this for this version more than any other version. All that is known is that certain something happened during the Age of Heroes. The Casterlys vanish from the chronicles, and the Lannisters appear in their place, ruling large portions of the Westerlands from beneath Casterly Rock.
Okay, so do you think then, I mean, that this Age of Heroes, I mean, obviously we're talking, it says the Long Night is what, they're kind of calling it, but leading into that, the Age of Heroes. Are we going to discover this,
I think we are. I think that yeah, I mean, I think it'd be cool to see some of these people. Obviously, Garth Greenhand, Bran the Builder. Right, we have no idea. And the other thing is that I am expecting this Long Night show to be kind of different.
Yeah,
like I don't think it might not feel like Game of Thrones.
Right,
and that's okay. It should feel different. It's a different show, so.
Yeah. Did you see the next line? So, Lan the Clever supposedly lived to the age of 312 and sired 100 bold sons and 100, lissom daughters, all fair-faced. Yeah, I mean, so he's one of those, from the Age of Heroes.
Right. So now I'm going to skip ahead here a little bit, Sir Ezra, and talk a little bit about the first Lancel Lannister.
Okay.
This is at the end of page, looks like 812. Well, in my version. The first Lancel Lannister, known of course as Lancel the Lion, rode to war against the Gardener kings of Highgarden and conquered the Reach as far south as Old Oak before being felled in battle. His son, Loren III, lost all his father had gained and earned the mocking name Loren the Limp. King Gerald Lannister, known as Gerald the Great, sailed to the Iron Islands and returned with 100 Ironborn hostages, promising to hang one every time the Iron men dared raid his shores. True to his word, Gerald hanged more than 20 of the hostages. Lancel IV is said to have beheaded the Ironborn king Harold Half-Drowned and his heir with a single stroke of a Valyrian steel sword, Bright Roar, at the Battle of Land's Point. He later died in the Battle of the Red Lake while attempting to invade the Reach. And then we get a nice little picture of Bright Roar there. And so I'm going to read a little bit more here just about that sword, because that's a Valyrian steel sword we've talked about before and people have asked us, and it kind of disappears, right? And we have no idea where it is, and this is where we get some of that direct information.
Yeah, right, yeah.
The sword, the sword Bright Roar came into possession of the Lannister kings in the century before the Doom, and it is said that the weight of gold they paid for it would have been enough to raise an army, but it was lost little more than a century later when Tommen II carried it with him when he sailed with his great fleet to the ruined Valyria. With the intention of plundering the wealth and sorcery he was sure still remained, the fleet never returned, nor Tommen, nor Bright Roar. The last report of them is found in a Volantene chronicle called The Glory of Volantis. There it is stated that a golden fleet bearing the Lion King had stayed there for supplies, and that the Triarchs lavished him with gifts. The chronicle claims that he swore that half he found to be given to the Triarchs and returned for their generosity, and a promise to send their fleet to his aid when he requested it. After that, he sailed away. The year after, the chronicle claims that the Triarch Marcello Targos dispatched a squadron of ships towards Valyria to see if any sight of the Golden Fleet could be found, but they returned empty-handed. So we don't really know what happened. Just kind of disappears.
Right, correct. Yeah, there are some people though. It does disappear, and they're going to kind of plunder, right, Valyria after the Doom. But there are some folks who are speculating that it could return. That it could be a sword that we might see again. And there's different, on the A Song of Ice and Fire form, or a form of Ice and Fire. You guys can find some nice theories there on that. I was just looking up a few as Sir Matt was reading there. And, like Tywin's brother, is somebody of interest who people are kind of looking at as someone who might be able to bring it back. The Laughing Lion, things like that. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, after that, it kind of goes into a big kind of segment about kind of how what has led up to kind of the Lannisters today. A lot of it is kind of retelling the story of Tywin, which we went over a couple weeks ago,
right?
Right when we were doing Mad King, because that's really a big Tywin Lannister chapter more than anything. So, just kind of retelling, some of their house history and what happens there. But I thought we would talk a little bit about here Casterly Rock.
Yeah,
the actual castle of Casterly Rock. All of the pictures from it are super cool. It is way high up on this hill. It is like this huge rock, and there's like some sort of port down at the bottom.
Yep.
But yeah, Casterly Rock, the ancient seat of House Lannister, is no ordinary castle. Although crowned with towers and turrets and watchtowers, with stone walls and oaken gates and iron portcullises guarding its every means of egress, the ancient fortress is in truth a colossal rock beside the sunset sea. A rock that some say looks like a lion in repose when the sun sets and the shadows fall. The rock has been a habitation for men for thousands of years. Before the coming of the first men, it seems likely that the children of the forest and giants made their homes in the great sea-carved caverns at its base. Bears, lions, wolves, and bats have also been known to make their lairs within. It says there's hundreds of mine shafts that go beneath. Obviously, we know that's how the Lannisters got a lot of money, is they have gold mines
right
down there. And it says that Castle Rock has never been taken by storm or siege. No castle in the Seven Kingdoms is larger, richer, or better defended. Legends say that Visenya Targaryen, upon seeing it, thanked the gods that King Lauren rode forth to face her brother Aegon on the field of fire. For if he had remained within the rock, even Dragonflame would not have daunted him.
Yeah.
It's interesting. The lords of Castle Rock have gathered many treasures over the century, and the sites of the rock, especially with the Golden Gallery, with its gilded ornaments and walls, and the Hall of Heroes, where the costly armor worn by 100 Lannister knights, lords, and kings stand eternal guard, are just famed throughout the Seven Kingdoms, even in the lands beyond the Narrow Sea.
So that's something we've never seen, though, right? I mean, wouldn't that be this hall of, where all these armor, like jeweled armor pieces are at, worn by famous folk? That would be awesome. And when you look at the photos, if you get a chance to go look at the actual photo here, and again, this is something that Gurr kind of sees as a good representation of what he describes as Casterly Rock.
Right.
It's huge, and it almost makes you think it's hiding something, that there's something in there that's being preserved or hidden.
Right. A
good spot to kind of, hold a secret weapon or something. I don't know. So it's kind of like, what all secrets does it have? Is there more there than meets the eye? So
yeah, we see it in the show. For like a brief second, remember it was last season where Daenerys sent the Unsullied to Casterly Rock, and Tyrion knew some of the secret passages, and they pulled everyone out. So when they got there was nothing there, and then they went and took over Highgarden and all of its money. Just a smart move.
Yeah,
smart move by Cersei. Yeah, so
right. Oh my gosh, let me see something here. So, okay, so real quick, just to back up, Tywin's brother. I've been looking up some stuff on him. I think his name's. Oh, is it Jaron Lannister? I think that's who it is. Yeah. And he sails on a ship called the Laughing Lion, I believe is where that comes from. But he is the youngest of the four brothers. So Tywin has also a sister in there as well. But he's overshadowed by his older brothers. But I thought this was interesting. Let's see. He does this coming-of-age tour where he goes, across the way to the free cities and different things. And it says that once he gifted Robert Baratheon with a gilded dagger. It has this ivory grip and a sapphire on the pommel. So, yeah, it says he also gifted Tyrion on his name day with the books of wonders and wonders made by men. Yeah, it's just kind of neat. It gives you a couple different things. The mention of the dagger was interesting to me because I was trying to think back to the description of, the Valyrian steel dagger that we have that started everything,
Absolutely, yeah.
So I just thought it was interesting that he gives him a gilded dagger complete with ivory grip and a sapphire on the pommel. So again, there's sapphires are showing up again. Yeah, and he's the one who decided to go find. I mean, since he's so overshadowed, he wanted to go find Bright Roar, and ends up losing a lot of his crew. He had to buy slaves because he was going into the Smoking Sea, and no one wanted him. No one wanted to go, and so Tywin, since he tracked him as far as Volantis. So there's rumors too. I think I said this in a previous episode of him coming across there's a girl at a tavern that they meet over there. I think it might be Tyrion and Jorah, who could have been an offspring or like a bastard daughter to what's his name? So Jaron. I don't know how you say his name. I have no idea how you say his name. They call him Jerry. That's his alias. So, anyways,
yeah.
But so she's over there. So he definitely maybe he did find it. Maybe he could bring it back. Maybe it's something that he's, came back, died, gave it to somebody else, and somebody else is holding it, and stuff. It's just kind of cool that this sword was lost, and then a brother went to go find it, and we don't know whether he's going to make it back. This is talked a lot about in A Dance of Dragons and A Feast of Crows, is where it's all mentioned. So, kind of cool stuff. Yeah,
super cool. So, all right, guys. Well, next week we will be in The Reach. We are almost done here.
Yeah.
We are almost done. We have 2 areas left of the 7 kingdoms.
Right.
That's kind of it. So
right, and do know, guys, if you want to go check out more of like the individual houses, again, you can click on every house, and we could go into extensive detail on the houses. You can also go look at some of this history. We just jumped to the Lannisters, but there's more stuff with the First Men and the kings who were there. You know, the different petty kings.
Eventually, we want to do like bigger maester studies on, the bigger houses and stuff like that.
Yeah. So just know that there's more, but yeah. So that's pretty much
for sure. Yep, just kind of a overview there. So, all right. Well, if we move on over to the reread, this week we were in Daenerys 4. Last week we were in Eddard 9. Where Littlefinger had taken Ned to the brothel that Jon Arryn had visited. There he had talked to a young whore who had a daughter that looked a lot like King Robert. They were returning to the Red Keep, and Ned was ambushed by Jaime Lannister.
Yeah.
Last time we were with Dany. Daenerys had learned to embrace the life of Drogo's Khalasar and stands up to Viserys for the first time. Afterward, Daenerys had learned how to. She learned some tricks. She learned some tricks and realizes that she's pregnant.
Right.
So. Yeah, so
that
happens.
Yeah, you gotta relax. You gotta, can't be tense. Yep. So, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So
that's what I hear, anyways.
All right. Well, this week, Daenerys 4. The Khalasar enters Vaith's Dothrak, and they ride up the God's Way. Daenerys discusses the pros and cons of the Dothraki combat skills with Ser Jorah Mormont. Once they have settled in, Daenerys invites Viserys to have supper with her and makes a peace offering of new clothes. He becomes angry and grabs her. She hits him hard with a belt and tells him to leave.
Yeah. Yep.
So I kind of have this. I mean, we could have broken this down more, but I just kind of have it into 2 sections. Section 1, I have it the Cart King.
Yep.
And section 2, I have it waking the, and then air quotes, dragon.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think one dragon does awake, and I think another it isn't really a dragon
at all. Yeah.
Yeah. So we will we'll get to that. But yeah, the way it kind of starts, and the Khalasar enters Vaith's Dothrak. They're under the Mother of the Mountains, and it's kind of proceeding along there, and they end up passing under that huge horse gate.
Yeah. Yep.
Sir. Yeah.
With the bronze stallions and stuff.
Yeah, it's like a pair of bronze stallions, and their hooves meet like half.
Right.
It's like 100 feet up or something like that. And Daenerys is wondering why they need a gate.
Yeah.
Yeah, when there's no walls, no buildings, and no people.
Right.
And it's kind of a cool, it's kind of a cool city they're talking about. As we get to that city, we get to the city later, but
yeah.
Right, yeah. So she looks back at Viserys, and he's, who's now on a horse again, and then we kind of get like some of the story of like his trip, right, where he's
he's walking.
Khal Drogo made him walk, and then he got to ride in a cart, which he thought was cool, but then they were really making fun of him, calling him like the Cart King.
Right. Yeah, but because it's for little children, old women, old men, crippled, disabled, folks, and so that's he's in the cart there, thinking it's a good thing, but really it's actually an insult. And then before that, he was called the Sorefoot King, because he was walking so much, and I think it was
what is it? It's like Khal Raymar.
Yeah.
Is Dothraki. Yeah.
Right, and so they were calling him, they were mocking him, in that regard, and eventually it's Dany who kind of begs Khal Drogo to let him have a horseback, like give him that much respect or whatever, and he really just doesn't. This is not one of his people necessarily, so I think he's just sort of like whatever. Like it doesn't, phase him a whole lot. So, yeah, but now there's a bit here I think which is interesting between. We're going to talk about the city because I think the city is really interesting too. But Dany talking to Ser Jorah is huge. You can really see Ser Jorah
absolutely. That's
develop.
Yeah, this is really cool, and this is also where you get some world building, right? This is one of the first things I think of when I think of like, oh, like we're really kind of to build this world, where we get like the differences of what would actually happen if the Dothraki met, and they talk about some of the combat and stuff like that, and it's super cool.
Yeah. Yeah, because she's thinking, they talk about the difference between this being a gift, that Daenerys as Khal Drogo's bride she's a gift, it's not this fair trade. So we talk about Viserys is always talking about the idea of getting 10,000 Dothraki screamers, and he could take back the Seven Kingdoms, right? But could he actually do that, Sir Matt? That's the question. And that's the question I think posed to Jorah Mormont. Could he actually do it? And that's where they kind of have a bit of a back and forth, and you learn that could Viserys do it? Not necessarily. But someone else at the head of that, and that's where Dany kind of, and I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but that's where she kind of asked, like, well, what if it were someone else? And there's just a really cool back and forth between those two on if there was a different leader, and then as you were saying, could they meet them in open combat? Would Westerosi lords even attempt to meet them in open combat? And we were just reading about the Westerlands there, and I think it says that their militia could when they call their banners, they could be anywhere from 40 to 50,000, strong.
Right.
And so it's like, don't they mention here too that before Jorah Mormont came to, once he was now he's among the Khalasar. Beforehand, he thought that maybe 1,000 knights could take on 10 times their number. You know what I mean, or 100 times their number. But now he's really reconsidering it. So
right. Well, yeah, and he talks a little bit about like they're much better archers, they're much better horseback riders.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, and I don't know if they talk about it in the book. I can't remember. Was it the book or the show where they talk about like siege? Like they wouldn't be able to siege a castle.
Yeah, they talk about it here. Yeah, both. In both they do.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, really. Okay, a cool little part as Jorah is mentioning Robert Baratheon and the men he has around him when he thought of the wardens, the different wardens, and would they, could the Dothraki take one of the regions? He spits when he talks about Ned Stark. He spits on the ground and kind of curses his name, because he took away everything from him. But he says that Robert Baratheon is the type of man, though, who hates to cower behind his walls. He would rather meet you on the open field. And so if you could bait him into that. And what's really interesting is that later on, whether it was show or book, I can't remember, but like he has a discussion about what, it would be if the whole Khalasar showed up. It would be suicide.
That's the show. That's where he has that conversation with Cersei, and they talk about his right. It's in the show. He has that conversation with Cersei about like their firstborn and whether or not it would have either worked, and that's where he says like what's more powerful, 5 or 1.
Yeah,
and
good point.
He does the fist, and he's like 1, and he talks about it. And Cersei says, well, we could, I think it's Cersei who says something about they wouldn't be able to siege the castles. He says it doesn't matter. He said they would just, if we hold up in our castles, they would just go around from village to village, burning and burning, and then
people would turn against them. Yeah,
right. People would turn against them, and they would start to root for. He's thinking Viserys, right?
Yeah.
The Targaryens is who they would root for. So
right, exactly. Yeah, I kind of like that a little bit in the show. I can't remember if
it's cool.
Comes up in the books, but I do know that like, that's neat to get his insight as to him back being a commander of these forces, and him realizing that really the Seven Kingdoms are not, as strong as people believe they are. There's a lot of so much infighting, so many politics that, it can be done, So, but to get into Jorah's mind, he talks about, as you said, they can shoot from horseback, just like the difference in weapon and armor, and that they're all mounted is another big thing, because you could have mounted knights, but again, it's different tactics, different style, quick speed versus strength, all those things are kind of things you have to consider, You know, when you put
Right.
the Dothraki against the Seven Kingdoms.
Right.
So
Yeah, and in the show, he has a conversation with somebody about like the like plate versus,
yeah,
like leather armor and stuff like that too. And they're talking about the differences of swords and things like that. And so yeah, so that's cool. I always love anytime we get that kind of military, like history or whatever tactics.
yeah, me
stuff
too.
Like that. It just it adds to the world. Explains like, hey, these people are totally different, right? So
Right. Well, and again, back to the commander. It's sort of like if you're more. I think if you show up with 10,000 Dothraki, if you use it wisely and you build a force, and you start to kind of cow a certain group, and then all of a sudden you bring them into your fold, and then you can amass an army. That might be the way to go do it. But just taking on King's Landing, outright is that's not gonna necessarily work.
Right.
So there's ways in which they can do it. But the other thing was too is that they're talking about how Viserys, he just believes that he's owed this, and he will, like, why a trade is a trade. Why haven't I got my army yet? And it's like,
Right.
well, this is actually, they consider this a gift, and he will gift you something else in return in due time. But they do things in their own time.
Right.
The Dothraki are different. They look at the signs. They're actually in Vaes Dothrak just to kind of, do this whole ceremony for Daenerys and for her unborn child. So yeah, they have rituals that they have to kind of,
Right.
work
Well,
through.
right here, it's like maybe like third or fourth page, where they're there, and Sir Jorah Mormont saying the Western market will have more food to your taste, and then the cow will honor his promises his own time. He had better, Viserys says grimly. I was promised a crown, and I mean to have it. The dragon is not mocked. Then skip ahead a little bit here, and the knight looked, and so Viserys, I think he rides off.
Yeah.
And the knight looked after Viserys doubtfully. Your brother should have bided his time in Pentos. There is no place for him in a Khalasar. Illyrio tried to warn him.
Yep.
And so so there's something interesting, right? Is did Illyrio think he actually would have gone, or did what's kind of the plan there?
Well, I actually think he makes a fool out of himself by traveling with the Khalasar, because
He totally does.
Right.
Yeah. I'm just saying from Illyrio's
yeah.
point of view. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think that, again, so if he would have stayed, it's like Khal Drogo doesn't necessarily know what what type of man he is. Could they plunder another city? Could there be something to gain across the Narrow Sea? So yeah, he might have actually followed through on his promise and given him his 10,000 in his own time. But I also wonder too if it wasn't like, do you really think that that Khal Drogo would give up 10,000 of his own men?
Yeah, I don't know.
That has always been hard for me to kind of believe.
Right. Yeah. I don't see him. I don't know. Maybe he just goes and takes like 10,000 slaves or something. But
yeah,
from like Illyrio's point of view too, you've got to think like these cows change all the time. Yeah, Drogo's never lost, but like
right.
every other cow had never lost, right? You know what I mean? Like that's kind of how it works. So
right. And so I'm thinking from Illyrio's perspective, maybe he needed, maybe he was indebted, or maybe this was something that he felt like he needed to do. Maybe he didn't think she was going to survive, but he keeps Viserys. I don't know. It's kind of bizarre, because they could have used her as a bride for young Griff if they ever were going to, make an alliance. Maybe there really is an alliance to be made there, and Illyrio is actually trying to, gain support for the Targaryens. Right. It just does. It seems like such a risk, because they're really uncontrollable, And
yeah, no, absolutely, yeah.
I don't know. Now, if they make it and Viserys stays and he were to get like his own sellsword company, and then Dany is out there and she lives, has a couple children, and then she's accepted by those people, well then yeah, maybe Khal Drogo could end up supporting his brother-in-law. You know what I mean? But down the line, but it just I don't know. Really foolish, and Jorah tells him that, and so did Illyrio, and he's impatient. He's just trying to live up to this Targaryen legacy. So
yeah, I know we still just don't really. I don't know Illyrio's plan.
I know.
To me, it seems like I don't know. What if Illyrio? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's like maybe what if you build their army up, right? So maybe what if the idea is, hey, let's build this Targaryen army up, right?
Yeah.
And then you go hire a faceless man, and then the faceless man just say kills Viserys.
Yeah.
Would then a reward from Robert Baratheon be worth more? You know, in the grand scheme of things, it's like, okay, so then it's like once it's like, well, now look how big of a threat he is. Oh, and I'm the one that took care of him. So then it's like it's like you spend 100,000 to get 3 million or something like that.
Yeah. Wait, now, do you mean from Illyrio's perspective or Jorah's?
Yeah. So like maybe Illyrio isn't actually like trying. Maybe that's part of the reason he wants to build this Targaryen army, but initially,
I get
and
you.
then later it changes because the realm's in chaos after the War of the Five Kings.
Right.
But right now it's kind of like, hey, we could prop up a Targaryen, because they kind of fall in his lap, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they just kind of show up. So if you're Illyrio and you're this kind of, schemer, like, I mean, he's kind of like a Littlefinger, but I think he's just focused a little more on money.
Right.
Just because of the way the free cities work. There is power. You don't really need like positions. You just need money.
Right.
So from his perspective, it's like, here's a valuable asset that I just got.
Yeah. Well,
So,
here's another angle, Sir Matt. If he and Varys are Blackfire loyalists, and they have a Blackfire among them, and being young Griff, maybe he's the continuation of the female line or something, then, and they see the Targaryens, yeah, they might befriend them at first, but then they sell the girl off because she's a goner. She's gonna be with the Khalasar, and that she's not gonna survive that, or she's just gonna go back to Vaes Dothrak, and she's gonna have to live in this city. And then with the brother, as you said, maybe they do falsely try to pretend to prop him up and make him a bigger threat to King Robert, and then we'll take him out for you, King Robert. Boom! Now we've got some sway at court, and we're still secretly building a Blackfire / pretender Targaryen to take back. I don't know. That's all up. A possibility. So.
Right.
Okay.
So. Yeah, he will go as soon as he has his 10,000. My lord husband promised a golden crown, which of course we know he gets.
Yep.
Yes, Khaleesi, but the Dothraki look on those things different than we do in the West. I have told him as much as Illyrio told him, but your brother does not listen. The horse lords are no traitors. Viserys thinks he sold you, and now he wants his price.
Yep.
Yet Khal Drogo would say that he had you as a gift, and he will give Viserys a gift in return. Yes, in his own time. You do not, you do not demand a gift from a cow. You do not demand anything of a cow. So do you? I wonder, like, if Khal Drogo even actually believed, like, oh, hey, I need to give her an actual gift, or give him an actual gift. Like, what if his gift is like, some sword or something?
Yeah, that could be. That could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah. If his gift is murder, as you said, yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just we just don't really know, like, what, because when he shows up, it's just like, oh, the plans were already made, and the Viserys thinks he's getting his 10,000, and as you kind of said, it just doesn't seem like Khal Drogo would do that. Like, who actually did Illyrio actually negotiated this?
Well,
like, was he actually supposed to get 10,000, or we don't really know.
Right, and so my other question too is. What does he see in this, in Daenerys? You know what I mean? Did he really want something different? Was he a cow who just wanted something, a Khaleesi not of his own people?
Right.
Maybe he did see some advantage because they have nothing.
Right.
What do they have to offer? I mean, other than Illyrio would have to have given him much more. There has to be something else in the work. I don't know. That's
right.
Just doesn't make sense.
It just seems. A
little shady. Yeah.
Seems like something's not right.
Something's up.
Yeah.
So,
okay. All right. So then we have the conversation about the armies, which we talked a little bit about that. Something I did think was interesting was where it talks about what Rhaegar brought to the Trident, where they talk about could 10,000 men really take it.
Yeah.
So your brother Rhaegar brought as many men to the Trident, 10,000. But that number, no more than a tenth, were knights, so only 1,000 knights. The rest were archers, free riders, and foot soldiers armed with spears and pikes when Rhaegar fell. Many threw down their weapons and fled the field. How long do you imagine such a rabble would stand against a charge of 40,000 screamers howling for blood? How well do you well would boiled leather jerkins and mailed shirts protect them when the arrows fall like rain?
Mm-hmm.
Not long, she said.
Right.
Yeah. So that's interesting though about Rhaegar, and this is another little thing. We get a little piece here. Why is that the army Rhaegar brought?
What do you mean? Like to the Trident? Like the?
Yeah. Was that just all he had left, or was there a bigger plan?
Well, I don't know. I think it might have been
Because maybe Rhaegar wasn't even there.
Yeah, maybe he was.
You know,
right.
I'm just saying, if you're one of those people, who's in that camp that Rhaegar wasn't there, I think that line you can pull and use that as some leverage for that theory. Because why would Rhaegar doesn't bring he just brings kind of a
40,000
mediocre army.
Right. That's why if the Lannisters would have joined him, that could have been huge.
Right.
The fact that they didn't, says something, right? We know that they're kind of on the fence and trying to see who's going to win out. Just like late Lord Walder Frey, right? I mean, he's late Frey. He's he again could have pushed both of those sides. Could have pushed this in the favor of Rhaegar, depending on which side they were going to lean to, because he has to end up getting the Dornish. Rhaegar's going to get all the Dornish, support. That's where the bulk of his army is from. So,
yeah,
which is ironic, I think, for the Targaryens. So,
right.
Okay, what else here? Let's see. Other big. Oh, I wanted to mention the city before we move on. This city is actually most of the time you've got slaves. They keep some slaves in there, but it's relatively abandoned. It is large enough to fit all of the different Khalasars, or the different Khals and their hordes. So when Khal Drogo shows up here, it's like there's still plenty of room in that city for everyone to gather. Right. Which is I thought was huge, and every different keep or whatever was kind of made differently, because the different slaves would build based upon where they had come from. If it's a Marine, if it's Yunkai, wherever it may be that they came from, they're building palaces or keeps that look a lot like where they came from. So I thought that was kind of neat. That's why Viserys calls it this trash city. It's just a bunch of other places that have been plundered, trash, etc. That's just been piled up here. So,
yeah.
Let's see.
Okay. So after that, we just get a little more of the city, and they talk about the Eastern Market and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They talk a little bit how every Khal has his blood risers, so that's kind of cool. So this chapter actually we do get a little bit more of the kind of day-to-day life of the Dothraki.
Yeah.
And just talk about they talk about blood riders and how his life had been bound. Kolo came to Dany, and as Irri and Jiqui were helping her down, he was the oldest of Drogo's 3 blood riders. They talk about him a little bit then. His life had been bound to Drogo's the day her lord husband was born. Every Khal has his blood risers. At first, Dany thought it more of kind of Dothraki Kingsguard sworn to protect their lord, but it went further than that. Jiqui had taught her that the blood rider was more than a guard. They were the Khal's brothers, his shadows, his fiercest friends. Blood of my blood, Drogo calls them.
Yep.
Which is cool. And the ancient tradition of the Horse Lords demanded that when the Khal died, his blood riders died with him.
Yep.
To ride at his side in the Nightlands.
Yeah.
Which is cool. Yeah. That's some serious,
It's some dedication. I mean, my question to Sir Matt is, is he my blood rider? That's
you better believe it.
Now hold on a second, because now what we didn't tell folks is that these blood riders they share everything. All right, so
yeah, that's true.
It's just funny. They
I know.
Yeah, there's some real serious dedication though, and Dany's actually glad that they don't share, that Khal Drogo doesn't share, quote, everything with his with his blood riders, because that would include her, so
yeah, that's absolutely,
something she's worried about. So, and actually they're about to, they're headed up to the Mother of Mountains, right? They're ascending up there, right? And that's actually only men can go up there, and they're taking Khal Drogo up there. It's sort of a ceremony type of thing where he'll go with his blood riders. and he's kind of informing her that he won't be with her tonight, essentially.
Right.
So, did we mention too that they all had to take off everyone had to put their hand over a sword,
right.
As they enter the city. You're not allowed to bear steel in the
No, you are
city.
not allowed to bear steel, which is obviously a huge deal that comes up back later.
Yeah. Yep.
With Viserys, that's kind of what ends finally gives him his crown. But yeah. You can't have that. So so like Daenerys kind of, it's getting dark. She kind of goes to Drogo's going to go right off, right? He's going to go like hunt.
Yeah.
Right, he's gonna make a sacrifice to the gods and return. And this is where Daenerys is like, okay, I'm gonna get a bath, gonna start to go to eat, and she says, Eerie, go to the bazaar and get some fruit and meat, anything but horse. She says, here he says, horse is best. Horse is best. Horse makes a man strong. She's like, Viserys hates horse meat.
Right.
So there she is, and she's trying to like look out for him.
She is, yeah.
She's trying to look out for him, and then he rushes in. And he says, how dare you send this whore to give me commands? He says, I only wanted, she's like, I only wanted to, like, have you join me for supper. He says, no one commands the dragon. I am your king. I should have sent you back her head. Dany kind of calms the situation down. She's like, don't be afraid. He's not going to hurt you.
Right.
And then he go ahead.
Well, it's one of those things where she's actually made him. I mean, his rat. They talked earlier in the chapter, like he had walked so much that everything he brought from Illyrio's. Again, he was once the beggar king.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Soiled. Everything's just super nasty, and she makes him these new garments, and they've got like this dragon head on it. It looks really good, but it's in the style. It's still, I think I envision it as like this hybrid clothing between the Dothraki garb and Westerosi garb, and he's insulted by it. You're trying to dress me up like one of these savages. He continues to call them, savages and stuff. And so, and she explains that's all I was trying to do. I was just trying to help you out. And the more she talks and tries to, show him that she's just looking after him, he just continues to get, ticked. And to the point where I think he what's he do? He grabs her, right? You have that part like where he grabs her and then kind of starts to kind of hurt her.
Right here. He picks up the cloak. He's like, this stinks of manure. I should use it as a horse blanket. She's like, I had these specially drawn for you. These are garments fit for a cow. She's like, he says, I am the Lord of the Seven Kingdoms, not some grass-stained savage with bells in his hair.
Yeah.
And he grabs her by the arm. He says, you forget yourself, slut. Do you think that big belly will protect you from me if you wake the dragon? His fingers dug into her arm painfully, and for an instant, Dany felt like a child again. Qualling in the face of his rage, she reached out with her other hand, grabbed the first thing she touched, the belt she had hoped to give him, a heavy chain of ornate bronze medallions. She swung it at him with all her strength. It caught him in the face. Viserys lets go of her. And she says, you are the one that forgets himself. Dany says, didn't you learn anything that day in the grass? Leave me now before I summon my khals to drag you out. And I pray that Khal Drogo does not hear of this, or he will cut open your belly and feed you your own entrails.
Yep.
Viserys scrambles back to his feet. When I come into my kingdom, you will rue this day. He walks off. And Daenerys gets her dinner, and she says, I'm not hungry. And then just kind of cool here, she kind of goes outside and lays, and then she kind of gets her eggs. She says, here we go. Eerie fetched the egg with the deep green shell, bronze flecks shining amidst its scales as it turned in her small hands. Dany curled up on her side, pulling the sand silk cloak across her and cradling the egg. In the hollow between her swollen belly and small, tender breast, she liked to hold them. They were so beautiful, and sometimes just being close to them made her feel stronger, braver, as if somehow she were drawing strength from the stone dragons locked inside. She was laying there holding the egg when she felt the child move within her, as if it was reaching out, brother to brother, blood to blood.
Yep.
You are the dragon, Dany whispered to him, the true dragon. I know it. And she smiled, and she went sleeping, dreaming of home.
Yeah. I got a question for you. That's pretty big. So, that was Rhaegal, right? That she was holding. So that's
Right.
named after Rhaegar Targaryen, green with the bronze
Mm-hmm.
markings there. My thought too, when I first read this, and we had the theory last week, was the idea that that her unborn son or unborn child is reaching out to this
Dragon.
this dragon, right? And then later on, she does she lose the child before she goes into the flames, or does she go? I think she does, doesn't she? Yeah, she does. That's what causes her to just. Yeah.
Well, something I just noticed was all of this happens right after she cuts open her brother's face.
Yes.
Right? And he bleeds.
He bleeds. Yeah.
And so there is this idea of it is fire and blood.
Yep.
Right. So blood is still part of it.
Yep.
So I just find it interesting, and
yeah.
I'm actually working on an enormous summer haul theory that has all to do with all of this stuff, and
Good.
It's gonna be a Patreon episode, so I don't want to spoil any of that, but I'm working on a massive theory coming hopefully soon. I'm always chipping away at it a little bit here, but yeah, so
Good.
it has all to do with the idea of fire and blood.
Yeah. Well, and so I was thinking, at what point could a child or the child's spirit be connected to this dragon, to these dragons? One of them, maybe. And is it Rhaegal? Is it Drogon? Is it like does he skin change into them? Is that even a possibility?
Yeah.
Does that spirit?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
I just she's the mother of dragons. Because people had brought up the idea that this would be the prince that was promised is Drogon, or
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. So, anyways, cool little chapter. You get a little insight into the Dothraki and Base Dothrak and the Dashkaline, and so pretty neat. Jorah Mormont's talking more about. We kind of skipped over. We brushed over just the one part where he talks about how he was exiled basically because of a few poachers. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's the way he kind of phrases it. A few poachers, and we know.
Yeah,
that he sold them into slavery.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's basically what happened. So, yeah, and we talk. We get to more of that too. That comes up back later when we finally get to a Clash of Kings around that time. But yeah. So so Ezra, we have a raven. We'd kind of like to read here. So I think since it's your best bud, I'll let you go ahead and read it.
Absolutely. So we have a raven here just from the Ghost of Harrenhal, and basically this is a pretty cheerful, optimistic type of. The Ghost sometimes sends us some heavy stuff. I mean, we're typically chasing down cats and rabbits and dragons into various dark places. So, but this time it's very straightforward. We know the Ghost is from Harrenhal, and that Harrenhal is a rather large keep, a place that could house quite a few of us. And the Ghost actually says this: "Good sirs, I happen to have access to a very large keep that could be readied for your tourney. Harrenhal isn't as cursed as everyone thinks it is. We haven't seen dragons in ages. I would be honored to host you, sirs, your bannermen and ladies. If you ever need a banquet hall for such an event," goes on to just kind of explain where we could locate this hall and how we could get access to it. So there's plenty of room there. There's plenty of access to a local pub right across the way. Drinks are permitted in this establishment. And so it's just a nice, good offer from the Ghost that we have a spot. I think this is in Utah. So in downtown Utah, or I don't know which town that is.
Downtown Utah.
Yeah, not downtown Utah. Bountiful.
Well, Salt Lake is the biggest city in Utah.
Which town is this? I gotta look this up.
I don't know.
I gotta look it up here. But anyways,
Bountiful.
I don't think that's right. But anyways, it doesn't matter. We will hit up the Ghost there, and we'll try to figure out a good time possibly, because I think Sir Matt, you said it was like an hour drive for. Well, that is actually a place.
It's not an hour drive.
Or a day drive.
Yeah, it would be a day. It would be a day drive. Yeah, because I drove from my third day when I was driving across the country. I left just a town just north of Salt Lake City.
Was it Bountiful? Because that's just north of Salt Lake.
No, I think it was Ogden was where I left, and I left like early in the morning, like I want to say like 5 or something, and I I got to Portland in a day. So it's a day's drive from.
Well,
Portland
get this.
to-
This place is just south of Ogden. Literally just south.
Okay,
of it.
so it's in between Ogden and
In Salt Lake. Yeah.
Yes, that's a day. That's a day's drive for me, and that's like an hour flight.
I mean, the Salt Lake
pretty
City
short flight.
International Airport is literally just down the road. Like,
Yeah,
right
Say
there
pretty-
it is.
Yeah.
So-
and remember, you know, I met that guy whose name I'm totally gonna blank on right now.
It was a Tanner, wasn't
when
it?
I stayed Tanner. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it was when I was in Ogden, and he said, "Hey, man, I can get you a discount, and I can stay at that hotel." And that was a pretty sick hotel I stayed at. So
Well, I mean, we've been thinking about, you know, like a meetup, and I think I'd mentioned it last week, and so I had seen this Raven from the Ghost a while back, and just sort of decided to hold on to it until we decided whether we would, you know, be in a position to do that. And I think here in the next little while, we might be able to do something like that on a long weekend or something. You know, come down and have like a meetup.
I'm sure we can find a day. We'll obviously have to schedule, you know, like a couple, you know, months in advance or something like that, and get it set up. I think we'd have a lot of people interested. I know certainly a lot of our American listeners. Yeah, so, you know, there's some people, who live relatively close and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah. So, anyways, that was really cool. So, really appreciate the offer, and you know, we'll definitely keep you guys posted on our plans there in regards to that. So, okay, I think that's
All right,
all. We've saved some good Ravens for Follow Up Friday, so we've got quite a few stocked up now. So.
All right, well, guys, it is time to sign off, say farewell. We want to thank you for playing the Game of Thrones. In our next episode, we will be discussing Chapter 37, Bran 5.
If you like our podcast, don't forget to subscribe, like us, write a review, leave a comment, or send us a raven at btkcast@gmail.com.
We will see you in a week, and remember, winter is coming.